Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Anime King. And today I'm going to be giving you part 5 of What If Naruto was the direct descendant of the sage. Remember to get this one to 200 likes as usual. Share this to all of your friends in social media platform. And also, go ahead and check out Anime King 3. I'm going to be posting a brand new episode of What If Naruto was betrayed by Hagoromo tonight, guys. So stay tuned for that, and I do hope that you guys enjoy. And remember, if you're new and this is the first time you hear my voice, go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all of your help and support. And yeah, without further ado, what is to begin this new episode? Start the intro. So, the last time we left off, the Kazekage warned Naruto about seeing his son ever again. But before Naruto leave though, Gaara nodded at him. As he spent a couple more days in the hidden sand as he wasn't allowed to see Tamari, seems that the Kazekage forbade her from meeting up with him. So after that he decided to leave, as it was off to a new journey. As he said goodbye to Matsuri, as she was sad. But he told her that they will meet again. Gaara ended up meeting up with Naruto, as he already made a plan. As he had asked Gaara if he wished to sleep and Gaara told him yes. Naruto ended up extracting the Shikaku from Gaara and placing it inside himself. As Gaara felt the sand, as he could control it, it was still protecting him. As Naruto told him that his mother is watching over him, his mother Chakra was entwined with his to protect him at all times. As Gaara thanked him, he thanked him very much. So with that, Naruto was off. Naruto ended up going into his mindscape, as the Shikaku kept on calling him father. The Shikaku was acting like a child, saying that he knew that father would return. As he then fall asleep after Naruto petted his head. As the Kyuubi told him that the Shikaku saw him as a sage, but he didn't want to elaborate anymore. So with that, Naruto leave. As Naruto was passing by a nearby town that was raining, as he saw the hope in the people's eyes, he ended up feeding some of the kids, as he saw they were rather hungry, as bandits had taken away many of the girls in the village. As Naruto felt something turn inside him here and that, as he made his way there, he took out all of the bandits. He knocked them unconscious, paralyzing their movement so they could not move, as he went there and freed all the girls. As Naruto was heading off, one of them followed him. Her name was Shizuku. As the both of them made their way, as she became Naruto's apprentice after talking with him for a while, as she wanted to learn what he can do. So Naruto started to teach her the theories on chakra control. As they made their way, as she explained that it was her fault. Everywhere she goes, seeing the rain just fall. As Naruto did this almighty push, they were near the hidden rain, as the rain hovered above them. As she was surprised that he had that control over the elements like that. As he explained some of his abilities to her, as she only thought that he was extremely incredible after he knew what he can do. So with that, they headed off as they were going towards the land of lightning. So yeah guys, that was basically that's where we left off. You guys can switch across to the page and check it out for yourself. So let's begin this new episode. The rain poured the entire way, as it must be because they were near the hidden rain. They did not stop at any local village or anything, as there was no one saying it out loud, but they knew that the hidden rain was in some kind of a civil war. The way people went and go about. Even in that one town that he went to, people had been driven into factions. They were the loyalists that belonged to Hanzo Salamander, and they were the rebels. Propaganda posters littered the wall, many of them with strange red clouds on them. That must be their symbol. The loyalists were hushing the things down though. They didn't want anyone else to know about the civil war, as they tore down the posters and brought in the people that were part of the rebel faction. These were the people who believed that Hanzo wasn't a good leader, or he wasn't doing things fast enough to restore the hidden rain. That wasn't what made Naruto cautious though, as him and his newly apprentice were walking on the road when a woman passed them. She had been wearing the black cloak with red clouds on them, as she was showing that she was a part of the rebellion. Yet none of them touched her. People went out of their way to avoid the blue-haired woman. As Naruto could feel it, she was practically radiating power. Compared to the other people around, they were nothing to her. As Naruto saw a thin layer of chakra covering her entire body with her Sharingan. So after that, him and his apprentice had avoided any major village or towns, as they didn't want to get caught in the civil war. Naruto would have gladly offered his help, but people who got mixed up in wars were always targeted, and when those target people couldn't get hurt, they started to go after people close to them. As Naruto made a promise to Shizuku that he'd protect her, and he wasn't about to break that promise. So they made their way north. As Naruto was relieved when he finally saw the border. In comparison, when they entered the country, things were smooth, but on their way out they were checked for anything, any contrabands. The men at the border were looking for a sign of them being a part of the rebel faction. It had taken a good hour before they were clear and finally allowed to leave into the hidden grass. Unfortunately for them though, upon leaving, the clouds up ahead didn't seem to dissipate, as Shizuku became sad at that. The area quickly changed as they found themselves in a forest area. Everything seemed oversized. Small mushrooms or large animals were large here. Another strange thing was there was no roads, so they had to go through the jungle with a small map to tell them their way. Naruto wasn't sure why, as he wondered if it had to do with his data path, gravity abilities, but he always had a sense for direction, as he knew which way was north and such. That proved rather helpful when the sky above was covered by the thick foliage of the grass. They couldn't even tell where the sun was, but that blocked out the rain. That was good. But now the jungle heat was rather hot, as they had abandoned the cloaks that they were wearing in the rain. You know, as a monk, I'm supposed to be in tune with nature and all animals around me, said Naruto. Shizuku giggled as a fly landed on Naruto. As Naruto was getting more irritated the more they go, as his Shakijo was jingling to keep the animals and bugs away from him, but they kept on swarming him, as there was a lot of them. Why isn't this happening to you? As she simply shrugged, it was strange. Not a single insect has come near to her since she arrived here, and there was a lot of them. I don't know. I guess animals just like me better. Naruto shook off another bloodsucker, looking for another free meal. He sighed as the area started to get dark. No doubt the sun was getting low, but they could not see from the foliage. Oh well, we might as well stop for the night anyway. At that, Shizuku froze as she looked around. Here? As in the middle of a jungle? Naruto nodded as he started to unseal their equipment and his supplies. Are you kidding? Did you see the size of some of the animals we passed? Naruto waved her off with a smile as he started to lay out the 2 sleeping mats. He had made sure to pick up a second one during their trip to the hidden rain. Don't worry. And also, this is the perfect opportunity for me to try something out. She looked at him curiously. What, she asked. He gave her a smile as he settled down. He started to seep his chakra into the earth. Then, he raised his arm. To Shizuku's shock, the ground started to break away, turning into golden sand. As Naruto raised the other hand, the sand started to move, circling the both of them until it formed a makeshift hut. As he released a breath. Whoa, I don't know how Gaara did that with such ease. Shizuku rushed towards him and she placed her hands on his shoulders. That was so cool. Can you teach me that? Naruto chuckled as he scratched the back of his head and sit back down. Not really, he said. Her face fell. Oh, it's one of your Rinnegan abilities. He shook his head, as though she seemed rather confused at that. No, actually, it's something I picked up from a friend of mine, Gaara from the sand. As she pulled the wall, as it was surprisingly thick. So if you pick it up, why can't I? Do you think I can't do it? Am I not good enough, she asked. No, said Naruto, nothing like that. It's just complicated. What do you mean complicated? Naruto opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came. As he closed it, and opened it again and closed it back. As he looked over at her, he wasn't sure if he was ready to tell her about his tenant. But as he looked at her, he remembered that moment when she was sitting in the cave, rain pouring down and she curled in on herself. He released a sigh. Have you ever heard of a Bijou? Time skip. Wow, Shizuku said, shocked at everything that she just heard. She might have think that it was a joke if Naruto wasn't so serious. Are you alright, Naruto asked. She nodded dumbly, and she tried to consume that all. It sounded so fantastical. Her friend contained the most powerful demon in the world. And now another one as well, if his story was anything to go on. Yeah, it's just a lot to take in. Naruto nodded, as it was shocking for him when it was first told to him. She snapped out of it though. So you can do all of this with the sand because of that second demon inside of you, huh? Shikaku. As Naruto nodded, as he waved his hand as a small pillar of sand grew between them. Yes, the previous host was also able to do it as well, but to a greater degree and much more ease. Well, he had his entire life to practice on it. This is fairly new to me. And also, calling them demon is incorrect. They are just beings made entirely of chakra. Bijus would be the correct term. Tail beasts? Isn't that just as negative, she said. Well, unfortunately, that is the only thing I can call them. Anything else and people wouldn't know what I'm talking about. She sighed as she nodded, as her fingers started to draw trails on the ground in the sand. I wonder what that would be like to be locked up inside of someone, because you're powerful and feared. It just sounds so unfair. I mean, like, they can think, right? No, intelligent animals should be caged up like that against their will. Naruto looked at her as he was surprised. Well, the Kyuubi certainly doesn't make itself easy to talk to. It's always an uphill battle with that fox. Shizuku chuckled a bit. The thought of Naruto acting so flippant with the powerful beast. It was a strange thought. Anyway, it's about time we get onto your chakra exercises. She groaned once again. Those don't sound like the noise of the best student ever, he said. It's just so boring. Can't we do something else like learn how to manipulate fire or wind? Said Naruto, as Shizuku gazed stern, hopeful. No, he said, as her head fell once again. Naruto could swear that he heard the rain sound increase above them. Instantly for a moment. You need chakra to do those things. So first of all, you need to learn how to control it. Alright, she said. I'll do it this time. As she closed her eyes and she started to focus. As she tightened her eyes, her tongue started to poke out from inside of her mouth. As Naruto watched her carefully, there was no change in her chakra whatsoever. After about 5 minutes, her shoulders slumped as she released a long breath. This is impossible. How am I supposed to find my chakra when I don't even know what I'm looking for? You have to look deep within yourself until you find that tiny spark of warmth. You have to lock onto it, fanning that spark until it becomes a small flame. As she still looked defeated, Naruto thought for a moment, perhaps he was going about this the wrong way. Tell you what, if you manage to find your chakra tonight, I promise tomorrow I'll teach you how to climb trees without your hands. Her head shot up as she remembered how he had shown her in the first place. As she went into a proper meditation, just like she saw what Naruto did many times. Naruto was a bit impressed, her posture was a bit off, but it was close. Naruto closed his eyes as well as he allowed his mind to clear. As he opened them, Father is back, said Shikaku, as Naruto was in the mindscape. Quiet, you pitiful Tanuki. That mere child will never be the sage. So be silent before I end your pathetic ramblings myself. Naruto sighed at the Kyuubi angry retort. It is good to see the both of you as well, said Naruto. The Kyuubi had become a lot more irritable since Shikaku had been added to the seal. As far as he could tell, the two of them could interact on a regular basis. When he was not in here, their cells separated. Well, that was the impression he got from the Kyuubi statements. But Naruto came in the seal quite regularly, and that was enough to piss off the Kyuubi because Shikaku was always there. Quiet, brat. You are just as pathetic for never denying Shikaku of his stupid illusions. Naruto once again sighed. This is how it will always go. He would enter a seal, Shikaku would greet him, and the Kyuubi would have some comment that would put the Tanuki into rage. Sure enough, Shikaku started to bang against the bars. Brother, shouldn't say that. Father will get mad at you, and then you will be punished. The Kyuubi merely snorted as he placed his head back down. Hey, don't ignore me, fox. The Kyuubi simply ignored him, as Shikaku let out another murderous cry. Shikaku then turned as he focused on Naruto. Father should punish the fox. You are father, you have to be father. You have father eyes and father staff. And I bet you have father's other position as well. As Naruto blinked at that, he heard about the sage legendary artifacts before, but he didn't have a clear idea what they were. As Naruto forgot, like the Kyuubi, also Shikaku must have known the sage. Shikaku, remind me about my possession, said Naruto. The Kyuubi cracked the eye and glared at Naruto. He was pissed off that Naruto would, impersonate the sage to get answers, but there really wasn't anything he can do. As Shikaku was happy, glad to be of help. Of course. There was father's necklace, it was shiny and red. There was father pots. You told us to stay away from those, or we might get hurt. Because father was nice and he cared. Father had a sword as well, but he never caught people with it. Shikaku would never understand why. But father would pet Shikaku on the head whenever he asked. There was also... As he scrunched up his face. He didn't smile, the rope. Father had a golden rope. As Shikaku peered down at Naruto, laying his head down. As Naruto walked over, as Naruto patted him on the head, as Shikaku slumped down on one side. You did good, Shikaku, said Naruto as he petted him, until he fell asleep. How pitiful. Using is mindless insanity for your questions. Are you that pitiful? As Naruto looked towards the fox and smiled. I have to use the resources available to me. although his descriptions were rather vague. Any help on that front, Naruto asked. The Kyuubi snorted as Naruto rolled blow back. Why, surely, you have a loyal lapdog now. What possible use could I be? Brat, said the Kyuubi. My name is still Naruto. How wonderful for you. Just leave so I can have my lonely cell back. It is better than listening to that blasted Tanuki snore. Naruto gave a nod before he left the seal. As the other cage with the Tanuki also vanished as well, leaving the Kyuubi alone. Naruto! Naruto's eyes snapped open. What? What is it? He blinked as he saw Shizuku waving her hand in front of his face. She saw his eyes open and she moved back, blushing as she realized how close they had been. You wouldn't wake up when I called, she said. Sorry, I was talking to them. Her eyes widened for a moment, but she quickly shook her head off it. Naruto, I did it. Naruto blinked. That's great, he said, as she beamed at the praise. Yeah, I found that spark you were talking about, and just that time you were telling me, I felt that warm feeling run through my body. As she felt amazing, her senses felt more alert, and she felt that she could run for miles without getting tired. It was like she can feel the new energy coursing through her body like streaks of warm water. You did not tell me it felt so amazing, she said, as Naruto tilted his head with a small smile. I wouldn't really know, because of the Kyuubi constantly dripping his chakra into my system. I always had it. I wouldn't know what it's like not to. As his smile then turned into a small blush. Shizuku, did you go outside or something? She blinked in surprise. She looked outside. Before she looked back. No. Why, she said. Well, your clothes and hair are wet. She looked down, as her clothes was pinned against her body. And because of the material, it was quite thin. Her eyes widened and she threw her arms over her chest. She may only be 11, but there were signs of her becoming a woman already. What the hell? Is this supposed to happen? She said. As Naruto looked at her a bit confused. I don't know. Let me check something. As he scanned her with his Rinnegan. Your chakra changed. I know it's flowing differently. She was still covering her chest as she inched closer to the fire to dry off. And the heat felt rather uncomfortable. Strange. It didn't feel so earlier. As she looked up at Naruto. What do you mean, different? As Naruto looked at her even more intensely, it made her feel uncomfortably, feel like he was looking right through her. I'm not sure, your chakra used to be light blue like most people. They all look different, but it's mostly slight. No, yours is a darker blue. And it's flowing like water. As Naruto did not have the Byakugan to see the exact flowing of the pathways, but he could still see it with his Rinnegan barely, and the chakra flowing through the pathways. What does that mean, she asked. Naruto sat back as his eyes narrowed like normal, so that you could barely see if they were open. As he thought for a moment in silence. I have no idea. Maybe it has something to do with their elemental affinity. While in the sand, he noticed slight difference in people's chakra, especially Jonin's. But it never changed like how Shizuka's chakra had changed. In any case, we won't find out now. We should get some sleep. She smiled. Yeah, and tomorrow you're gonna teach me how to wall walk. Time skip. This is awesome! It was a few days after Shizuku managed to unlock her chakra, and they were making their way through the jungle. The only difference is, Shizuku took every chance that she got to walk up every tree, mushroom, everything that could see vertically in sight. It was rather refreshing for Naruto to see her take such delight into something as small as this. Then again, he guessed to a civilian who would only live a normal life, they would find things like this extraordinary. As she got the exercise down in 2 days. Be careful, said Naruto, as she jumped from one branch to another. If she fell, he would catch her. She used chakra to reinforce her legs as she dropped from a far height. As she landed on her feet. She has been in rather good spirits lately. Things have been looking up for her. The only thing about her chakra was, when she used it in large amounts, she got wet for no reason. It's fine, you don't have to worry, she said. I have a great teacher after all, Naruto-sensei. As Naruto gave a small sigh along with a smile. Not you too, he said. She grinned as she ran off once again, climbing up the trees. As Naruto was glad the large animals were staying away from them at the moment. As he watched her run, he felt something, as a weight came on his shakijo. As he turned to see a monkey, sitting on it looking at him. As the both of them stared at each other. Hey, said Naruto as the monkey raced along his arm. It paused at his neck for a moment, sniffing, the Magatama bead hanging from his ear. As the monkey spun around him before jumping off. As Naruto felt a bit lighter than usual. As Naruto started to pat himself down, the scroll containing their things were missing. He looked up shocked to see the monkey disappear on a tree. Get back here, he said. As Shizuku turned as she saw him took off. She went after him as she was somewhat able to keep up with him, now that she had unlocked her chakra. But as fast as Naruto was, the monkey was used to the air as he swung from tree branch to tree branch, swooping and flying through trees. As the monkey stopped in a clearing, nibbling on the scroll, not really doing anything as Naruto landed. Raising the arm, Naruto smirked. There was no way he can dodge him this time. Universal? Hey Naruto. Shizuku landed as the monkey rushed off. Why did you run off like that? Naruto sighed. A monkey stole the food and supplies. Her eyes widened before she giggled at the strange thing that just happened to him. Well, did you catch it? It ran off before I could grab it. As he left out the fact that she was the one that alerted the monkey to their presence in the first place. As she walked over to the pile of loose leaf. Hey, there's a door here. As she held up one side of a trap door. Maybe the monkey went in here. Naruto walked over as Shizuku went down there. What are you doing? She paused and looked at him. What do you mean? We need our supplies, don't we? She said it like she was walking down to a corridor that was in a jungle that had no reason for being there. Now, are you coming or not? As her head vanished, she walked further down. As Naruto quickly went after her. Hey, wait up! As he caught up with her at the bottom of the stairs. It was just a long corridor with a few splitting off. The walls had the same crisscross pattern, with candles on the walls. Oh great, how are we supposed to find the monkey in this place? It looks like it goes on forever, said Shizuku. Naruto simply sighed. It was her idea in the first place to come down here. Don't worry, if we get close enough, I'll be able to see his chakra, even through a few walls. As they made their way. As they were a distance off, neither of them noticed that the floor suddenly shifted to show a dull eye just looking at them. Just what is this place anyway? The candles had went out as Naruto used his fire nature to light them. I don't know, it looks abandoned. I read that May of the 3rd, Great Ninja War took place in the grass. Maybe it's one of the ninjas' bases. Were there be symbols for the village all over then, says Shizuku. So far it's all the same pattern with the candles. As Naruto frowned as he moved on to the next spot in the wall, looking out for any chakra signatures. For all he knew, the monkey was long gone with the scroll, or tossed away somewhere. While sealing scrolls, phone jutsu did let off some chakra. It didn't have enough for Naruto to see it through the wall. I really don't think that shinobis will go around and place their symbols everywhere, especially during a war, said Naruto. But don't they wear those fort protector things with their village symbol on them? Said Shizuku. Naruto nodded as he looked into a room, seeing old computers and a few decks. As he came back out, why do they do that anyway? I mean, aren't they supposed to be sneaky? Isn't having the village headband pricked on your forehead, well, a big giveaway? I believe it's a matter of pride in your village, the place you grew up and want to protect, said Naruto. She nodded slowly as they walked. But couldn't someone just steal another village forehead protector and blame them for something? Well, I'm sure someone thought of that, Naruto says he lit some candles in the past, and I'm sure some villages found out a way to stop it. Remember, if one village can do it, they all can. Yeah, you don't have it spelled out like I'm dumb, you know? Naruto simply chuckled as he walked on. A thing is never too often repeated. That is never fully learned, my young student, he said. She mumbled something under her breath as she crossed her arms and pouted. And that's another thing. You should stop with all this wise, proverb stuff. It's really... Naruto jumped towards her and pushed her out of the way, tackling her towards the next side of the earth as the large stone flap flipped over. If he hadn't moved any sooner, she would have been crushed underneath it. She stared at the spot with wide eyes. As Naruto got to his feet, where are you? Come out. Naruto was worried he only sensed an attack a minute before it happened, by feeling the chakra leaking into the earth. But now there was nothing at all. Shizuku, stay close to me. As Naruto heard nothing as he turned to come face to face the wall of solid earth. Shizuku? Naruto placed his hand against the wall, drawing chakra out of it before smashing it to pieces. But all he saw was darkness. Shizuku was gone, and he couldn't even see her chakra signature. Shizuku! All he got was his voice echoing around. Naruto slammed his staff into the ground. I will raise this base to get her back if I have to. Do you hear me? Naruto said. Oh my. Is the small-sized monk angry perhaps? Naruto spun around as he heard the voice. It was like it was directly into his ear. Where are you? Naruto said, as it was like the walls were speaking. Oh, but that is fun in this silly game of hide and seek. You just trespassed on Orochimaru's solemn property, and now you're paying the price for what you did. Naruto went quiet. Oh, ignoring me? That won't do. Perhaps you will speak if you know what the price of the game was. Find me if you can, little monk. I don't think that your little friend here have that much long. As the voice faded away as it spoke, as Naruto took a deep breath, as he formed 5 clones. But as soon as they started to run off the cover of the corridors, a large earth grew underneath them. Their bodies slammed into the walls they got this spell. What a naughty little monk. Cheating is not prohibited. As Naruto restrained himself from not getting raised by the taunt. That same voice just laughed as he sprinted down another corridor, sounding neither male or female. Tock, tick, tock. Your friend head is on the chopping block again. As Naruto did his best to ignore it, searching for Chakra's signature. Finally, he rounded a corner to see Shizuku tied up, bound by her wrists and ankles, as she was in the middle of a corridor. But as he approached her, he slowed down. Ishakicho raced in front of him as his eyes narrowed. Shizuku, he said. Her eyes snapped towards him as Naruto went over her and unbound her. As she got to her feet and wrapped him up in a warm hug. I knew that you will come, Naruto. She froze as Naruto applied his finger to her pressure point. Naruto. Naruto here was shadowing his eyes as he stepped back. Ishakicho raised in front of him. Where is Shizuku? Said Naruto. She just looked at him with wide eyes as she was unable to move her body. Naruto, what's going on? Naruto's hand started clenching on his staff even tighter as he pressed his hand against her stomach as his eyes narrowed. I will drain you dry of chakra if you don't tell me where she is. As a frightened look on Shizuku's face vanished, replaced with a deadly smirk. Her neck swiveled at strange angles to face Naruto, her eyes turning into a brown color. How very fascinating, as her entire body lost its color, turning into a earth substance before breaking away. My duplicates are exact copies. There isn't a strand of flaw or hair different. How did you notice the difference? Naruto turned on his foot to where the voice was coming from as he saw a rather grotesque sight. A tall man simply melted out of the earth as he had mud all over his body. His legs were still fused to the earth. Dirty black hair covering one eye. The one visible eye was that same brown color like what the clone just had, as he had a big smile on his face. My, aren't you just an interesting little monk? I wonder, what else can you do? Naruto slammed his staff into the ground. I'll show you. Universal pull. The man's upper body was yanked, but his feet was rooted to the earth. As Naruto used an opportunity to launch himself forward, striking him in a nerve that should have paralyzed the man. But where his finger impacted, the man's body simply crumbled away like loose dirt. Oh, now that tickle. The man's body then shot forward and wrapped around Naruto, as he lowered his torso until him and Naruto was at eye level. You are rather fascinating. Well, let's get you to the operating table, shall we? Naruto felt the pressure on his body wrap him up tightly. Almighty. Push! As the man was blown off of him. As the man lay there for a moment, his entire lower body blown off, just splattering down into the mud. Oh yes, I will have to bring you to Orochimaru-sama himself. He will want to take a good look at you, Naruto. As the man's body completely melted through the mud once again. As Naruto picked up his Shakijo, as Naruto couldn't feel his chakra anymore, it was like his chakra just vanished into the earth, like he was actually mud. As Naruto could have sworn that the man's chakra was brown, that was strange itself. And it didn't feel like a clone. He was sure that it was a real man in flesh, or mud. As Naruto realized why it seemed so different, the man's chakra was different in the same way that Shizuku's was. But instead of his chakra flowing in a stream, it was thick, like mud running down a hill. In some places when the man started to emerge to the floor, Naruto saw his chakra stop moving altogether, as he filed that information away for later. Now he needed to get Shizuku back. As he started running the halls, he didn't see the mud man once again, as the voice wasn't there anymore. Naruto was about to start blasting through some walls, but he found himself in a large open room that was lit up. As he had to cover his eyes with his arm, seeing that he was running in the dark tunnel for so long, now coming into this intensely bright room. As he opened his eyes, the room was filled with Shizuku copies, as they all felt like extensions of that one man. The man then melted out of the ceiling hanging there, as all of the Shizuku copies turned to look at him, their eyes watering. Oh dear, so many little girls to pick from, and all of them are fake. Or are they, he says, he stretched his body down. I don't have time for your games. Tell me where the real Shizuku is, and Naruto raised his hand. Ah, I wouldn't go launch you one of those fancy gravity blast, Naruto-kun. You see, little Shizuku is somewhere in the room. You wouldn't want to hurt her, now would you? Didn't you make a promise that she would never cry again? As Naruto froze as he looked at the man. How do you know that? And how do you know my name? The man chuckled as his body dropped to the floor like mud. Oh, but I know you, Naruto-kun. I know all about you. You're Rinnegan, little Shizuku, and that friend in your stomach. The man reformed, his legs still fused to the ground though. You see, Orochimaru-sama granted me incredible power to keep this out of the way base safe for him. He allowed me to become one with the earth, giving me an unkillable body of mud and earth. Not only that, but I'm able to reach deep into your mind just with a single touch. One brush and all of the secrets came tumbling out to me. I am Midora, guardian of the Northwest Research Facility. So now, how should we go on with our little game, Naruto-kun? I said, give me back my friend, Naruto. The man laughed. It seems that was a mistake as the room exploded, sand exploding out of the earth. As the mudman was pinned down by the sand and the clones as well. You think sand can hold me? How stupid are you? I told you The man's eyes widened. What is this? What are you doing? As Naruto focused all his control on the sand binding the man. You know my abilities, so take a guess. As the man tried to change his body into different angles to get out, but he could not. You're pre-the-path. But how? Naruto chuckled as the sand started to constrict around Midora's body. You obviously didn't look that hard into my memories then. The pre-the-path work with anything my chakra made contact with, and this sand is saturated in it. Now, tell me where Shizuku is. Even if your body is immune to regular attacks, I bet it won't work if you're drained of chakra. As the mudman started to feel dizzy from the quick rate he was losing. Go to hell, brat. The sand constrict him even further, making him gasp. Go ahead, crush me, and you will never see that little girl ever again. I have already said I would raise this entire base to the ground before I let her get hurt. You've seen my memories, am I lying? As Naruto jingled his Shakijo, I don't need to crush you when I have this, right? The man looked at the staff in fear. As Naruto pointed the staff end right in front of his forehead. Last chance, Midora. Tell me where she is. The man simply tried to spit at Naruto as Naruto placed the staff against his head. You think this is the end, brat? Orochimaru-sama will find you soon enough, and you will strap you down to one of those tables and see the secret behind those eyes of yours. As he was cursing, his ears started to fall away, his body unstable and breaking into mud, without the necessary chakra to hold together. Just you wait and see, Jinjoki. You will die. You will die some way. The last of the man melted away into a small brown puddle on the floor. Naruto heard a gasp per ear and a choking cough. As Naruto saw Shizuku being held up by his hand, the exact same way that Midora had been pulled up a minute ago. The man had placed her inside his body, and that was why he couldn't sense or see her chakra. He allowed the sand to fall as he caught her in his arms. Shizuku, are you okay? She offered him a weak smile. He got mud all over my Maiko outfit. Her voice was rather weak, but it managed to get a small laugh out of Naruto. Come on, let's go. As he gently picked her up, as she wrapped her arms around his neck, as he placed her on his back. What did you do to him? My Shakijo has the ability to permanently take away someone's ability to use chakra. Without it, his body could not stay together, so it fell apart. She snuggled her face closer into his neck to get more comfortable. Is he dead? Shizuku felt Naruto tense at her words, as they finally reached the exit. No, said Naruto, and with that they walked on. Time skip. Oh hey, it's a monkey, said Shizuku, as the monkey was still chewing on the scroll. As Naruto glared at the thing, as Shizuku waved, as he waved back. He's so cute, can we keep him? He wasn't even in the base, said Naruto, as he placed Shizuku down. As she lay down on the soft ground, as she needed some sleep, she was exhausted. As the monkey came over, as he dropped the scroll at Naruto's feet before climbing up Naruto's clothes and sitting on Naruto's staff, picking some insect out of his fur. You know, you really caused us a lot of trouble, little guy. The monkey looked at him before returning back to what it was doing. Naruto brought his hand up as sand came and formed a makeshift hut. His arm was burning slightly from an influx of sand that they used inside the base from Shikaku chakra, but a little rest would fix that. As he looked over Shizuku, as he took off his coat and brought it over. Days could be very hot in the jungle, but nights were cold. As he placed over her, he smiled tiredly as she pulled the cloak over herself. I nearly lost her today. I wasn't strong enough to protect her at the start. I need to start to take my job as her teacher seriously. Start tomorrow actually teach her things that can protect her when I can't. As he grabbed his sleeping mat and crashed down on it. Time skip. My elemental affinity? Naruto nodded as he were walking. Yeah, know that you have access to your chakra, and you have begun controlled exercises. We should know your affinity as soon as possible. As her eyes lit up, she had recovered from her whole underground base experience, and she had returned back to normal. Well, that was probably because of their new traveling companion. As the monkey was currently on Naruto's staff, playing with the rings on the end to make them jingle even more. As Shizuku had named him Masaru, Naruto had no idea why. Oh cool, can you teach me awesome jutsus like breathing fire and firing bolts of lightning? As she was looking at Naruto with stars in her eyes that made Naruto slightly nervous, as he rubbed the back of his head as he looked away. Actually, The only jutsu I know is Shadow Clone Jutsu. Everything else is either my Rinnegan or my new Sun abilities. Her shoulders slump at that, as Naruto heard the rain, sound increasing for a moment. Was that just his imagination or what? We really want to know. But I'm sure we can pick up some jutsu scrolls once we find Nerafinte. See, if a switch had been flipped in her head bubble, Shizuku was back. Alright, so how do we find my Afinte? We need some paper, chakra paper. You channel chakra into it and you react differently. Depend on your Afinte. Most people only have one. Other, with bloodline limits, can have 2 or 3. But when you become a Jonin, you develop a second one as well. As she nodded excitedly, even though the ability to walk up walls were extremely cool, she was excited to learn more. Alright, where do we get chakra paper, she asked. There are 3 places in the elemental nations that produce it. Konoha, a few islands in Mizu no Kuni, and Taki. Lucky, Taki is on her way to the land of lightning. Shizuku's eyes wide in happiness, as the both of them had to pull up their cloak as they were coming out of the jungle, as the rain started to come down on them once again. Unfortunately though, I have no idea where Taki is. Shizuku nearly fall over at that as she turned towards Naruto. They're supposed to be really secretive. Merchants are led through by blindfolds. Senpai had been there once. Apparently they get the paper from this large tree in the center of the village. Well, if merchants get there, it can't be too hard to find, she said. I wouldn't be too certain. The village prides itself on never being invaded. Not even once. And with that they finally came out of the jungle, as they were currently at a cliff top, as they saw many different angles going off in different directions, with rivers flowing through everything, as Shizuku blinked in amazement at the beautiful scene. Wow, I can suddenly see why. Well, I still can't see any road, said Naruto. Lucky for the two of them, they actually came upon a road after going down the cliff face, as it was better than walking through the jungle aimlessly. The trio of boy, girl, and monkey made their way, as they saw a much better maintained road that was paved. After that, it wasn't long before they reached a small town, as Shizuku was happy to change her clothes and get them clean, as Naruto stacked up on supplies. Currently, they were sitting in a cafe, a plate of dango between them, which Shizuku was marching her way through it. As they were getting odd looks. Well, it must be every day that you saw a young monk and Maiko eating, and also feeding a small monkey, as Naruto spotted a small trio walking along the road, as he saw their headbands, with a symbol for the hidden waterfall. Naruto smiled at that. That means they weren't too far off from the village itself, as Naruto knew that they just couldn't follow them. Once they left the town, they would take off at speed, and it would be quite, well, suspicious if Naruto and Shizuku take off like that as well, following them, as he tried to ask about the way to Taki from the residents, but they were very tight-lipped. Apparently, even merchants go through a special, well, ritual before entering the village, as Naruto paid for the food and motioned for them to follow him. Originally, Naruto wanted to seek out the area by using his Rinnegan to find out the high chakra level, but he remembered that Ninja Village had defense against those things. It was started by Konoha, the wife of the first Hokage, that created a barrier. Well, it doesn't call for people leaving the barrier, seeing that Naruto just left the village that day. Other villages countermeasures against the Byakugan and the Rinnegan, those things that could see chakra. At first, Naruto was excited when he found the name Mito Uzumaki, as he went to learn about the Uzumaki clan at the temple. The Hokage had told him that he was an orphan, so Naruto thought that name was given to him, because the old man told him that he didn't know who his parents were. But unfortunately, Uzu was wiped out from the elemental nations, and Naruto didn't have any of their, well, characteristics. He didn't have the red hair or the purple eyes. He didn't count the fact that his Rinnegan was purple. As they continually came across, wandering towards Taki, as they made their way as the same direction as Taki Shinobi's, as Naruto came across a large waterfall. Why did we stop here? I thought we were looking for Taki. Naruto shrugged off his cloak as sand came out and caught it. While traveling, he had worked on his sand manipulation. He was still nowhere near the mastery that Gaara had, but he was closing the gap with his determination. As he pointed over towards the raging waterfall, as he started to remove the top layer of his robes, as Shizuku blushed, she didn't know why. We are, said Naruto. That's why we're here at the waterfall. For being only 11, Naruto had a good physique from his training at the temple. Are you kidding me? You just expected to search every waterfall until you come upon a hidden village? Naruto simply grinned and nodded, as he created more sand to hold his pouches. That too, but I also want to move on to the next level of wind manipulation training, as her eyes widened, as she had asked him, when she saw him splitting leaf as he explained about the individual chakra types. You're going to cut that? Naruto nodded, as he has been waiting for something like this. He could even use different parts of his body to split leaf. Now this was the next part. That's the plan anyway. We'll move on to waterfall, until we find the entrance towards Taki. As he had created a sand table as he reached for one of the pouches. as he pulled out a scroll, as he threw it towards Shizuku, who fumbled before she caught onto it. This was the scrolls my senpai gave me before I left the temple. It contained all of the initial stages to elemental manipulation. You should get as much practice as you can early. Wait, but don't we need to figure out my affinity first, she asked. Well, technically, affinity only points to the element that you will have most ease in learning. You can technically learn any of them, but the one that opposes your element will be difficult though. Try out water manipulation first. I take a guess that is your element anyway. The chakra paper, you just need to confirm it or see if you have a bloodline. She nodded as she unraveled the scroll as she was surprised at the level of detail it went into on each element. By the time she found the water manipulation, Naruto created a stand platform, as two copies came beside him as he tested the waterfall with his hands, as he plunged his hand into the cold water. As Shizuku watched as he split just a bit, and he just started, she moved away towards the calm water. As she read the scroll over and before she placed it down to the side, she placed her hand on the small water pond. As you were supposed to pull away your hand, and the water was supposed to pull back with it. The higher you could raise your hand without breaking the water pillar, the better control you had. She took a calming breath as she remembered all the instructions she received from Naruto, as she found that small flame at her core, maneuvering it, guiding it. As she started to expel it, reading what the scroll said, as she imagined the water chakra flowing like liquid. As she pulled her hand away, her eyes widened as the water sort of rose with it as it connected to her palm. But with her excitement, the thing broke as it fell back into the stream. She looked over as she wanted to tell Naruto, but she saw him focusing. As she felt a determination wash over her by this, as she went back to her own task. Over the next week, the two of them continued, as Shizuku was, well, getting better faster because of her exercise of just the first stage. But Naruto was also improving as he could already cut the waterfall flow. But he had it down to himself and a clone. He wanted to learn to do it on his own. As Shizuku could raise the water straight up to her mid-thigh already. As Naruto came over and congratulated her on that. At the moment the two were relaxing against the waterfall. This was their 10th one. They had only just arrived, but the sun was already setting. So they decided to just, well, recover. As they were talking about Shizuku time in her village and Naruto time at the temple, she got into a lot of mischief in her little time there. She didn't really appreciate being shunned and scorned for something that she couldn't control. She had taken out her frustration by pranking the villagers. That didn't improve her, well, state, but it made her feel happier. Even so, Naruto found himself laughing at her explanation for pranks. And so by the time she realized it wasn't her cat, I already painted her front door orange. The two of them burst out laughing. This is really nice, Naruto. I wish you could have come to my village sooner to get me away from there. She sighed once again and she rested her head on his shoulder. I guess you're like the knight that saved the princess from the tower, but you're a monk, and I'm hardly a princess. Naruto chuckled at that. What, she said. I never understood the whole prince or princess deal. Just because you're born to a daimyo, you're royalty? I don't understand what makes you better than other people. It's like in my old village, the clans there, the Hyuga, and the Uchihas, were like royalty. But what exactly made them special? I mean, just because they have weird eyes, that doesn't make them better than others. I guess that is just the way things are. Royalty or royalty, and everyone is everyone else. Naruto smiled as he just looked up at the moon. Nah, I never really care for that fate birth by stuff thing. I mean, you can make it rain anywhere you go. What princess can say that? As Shizuku blushed, she liked the idea of him comparing her to a princess for some reason. As Naruto got up as he extended his hand. If you would, my rain princess, he said. As she coughed in her hand, going along with the bit. But it wouldn't be proper, monk-san. Don't you agree? The mood was ruined though, as the monkey jumped on top of Naruto's head, clinging on to a few of Naruto's strands. I think Masuri wanted to join in as well. As if agreeing with her, the monkey stood firm on Naruto's head, copying his posture, as Shizuku burst out laughing, as Naruto turned his eyes, looking towards the trees, as 6 people sunshine around them. As Naruto focused, all of them were women. Cloths covering their faces. Identify yourself. You're dangerously close to Taki without authorization. Naruto frowned as they didn't quite specify how far they were from the village, deciding to wonder if they would just guide them along. Naruto raised his hand in surrender. I'm just a traveling monk on his journey, with my companion here. As he smiled and rubbed back of his head, some of their fingers twitched toward their kunai pouch as he said so. I was actually looking for Taki with my friend. Would you be willing to take us there? The kunoichi blinked in surprise, as she turned towards the squad mates. They spoke in hushed voices. Finally, they turned back at the same moment. She seemed to be the leader as she spoke, black hair and light green eyes. If you want access into Taki, you are required to be blindfolded and have a disoriented Genjutsu placed over you. Do you know what that is? Naruto nodded and Shizuku did behind him as well, as Naruto had gone through some of the shinobi disciplines with her, so she knew what they were talking about. Very well. We were on our way back from patrol anyway. She made a hand motion and two of her members came forward and placed cloths around Naruto and Shizuku's eyes, as another one went through hand sign. Unfortunately though, as the Genjutsu was sucked away inside Naruto, the Chakra anyway, making it useless by Naruto to breathe a path. Not that they knew that, and he sure wasn't going to tell them, because that would make him seem as more of a threat in their eyes. As they stumbled through the jungle, Shizuku almost fallen a couple times because of the Genjutsu, as Naruto could tell that they were standing close by a waterfall, not the one they had been near a moment ago, as he heard the water diminish slightly as he wanted to know what was going on. All he could see was their chakra, all shapes of their chakra, as they enter in a strange tunnel as they were leaded, as Naruto was memorizing each turn they took. As he memorized the twists and turns, he had no thought of doing anything bad in Taki, but he had promised to protect Shizuku. So, if he need to escape a hidden village yet again, he will have to. As Naruto was being led into the village, in another part of the village, time to get up, fool, as a fist banged on the door of the room that she was in. Fu snorted. It wasn't even a room, it was more of a prison cell. But guys, will be ending this episode right here. If you want the next part of this or what to do, like, subscribe, comment down below and turn on that bell notification to stay posted. Remember, share to all of your friends in your social media platform. And also guys, stay in tune for the rest of the what ifs coming away, and I hope you guys enjoy each and every one of them. A link will be at the top of the description for I'm making 3, so stay in tune for what if Naruto's betrayed by Hagoromo, guys. And remember, if you're new and this is the first time hearing my voice, and you enjoy the videos on both Anime King and Anime King 3, go ahead and click that red subscribe button to become a part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all of your help and your support, guys. And yeah, without further ado, I'm out for now. See you guys soon. Peace.